It wasn't a miracle that our grandmas always made the best food on the block. But have you ever stopped and wondered about the secrets behind their magic? Here are some pretty sweet hacks home chef grannies used in the kitchen. One of the most widespread hacks that got around like wildfire in the USA was the idea of speeding up the process of caramelizing onions by adding in some baking soda. Baking soda is a handy tool for many tasks, like softening vegetables or removing pesky stains. In the case of onions, it creates a pretty volatile pH environment, which helps the onions brown faster, better, and with a much richer flavor. This has to do with onions being more alkaline post-baking soda, and that really helps speed up the browning process. If you want to cut down on the prep time of your food without sacrificing the taste, and you find yourself putting in caramelized onions a lot, then this is one hack from Grandma to us to you. The typical scrambled eggs breakfast has been more or less a national tradition for so many years, it is impossible to tell where it really started. Low-key, small-time diners, high-tier French-American restaurants, and steakhouses all serve some kind of variation on eggs, including scrambled-ons. Hence, what do you do to add a little bit of variety, texture, and a bit of spaz to this classical option? If mayonnaise can work wonders for a burger, why not try it here? No, seriously, you'd be surprised. We know most people never make the link between eggs and mayo, but they can actually make them so much more fluffier and add this nice creamy texture too. If you do not believe us, then just search up any grandma's recipe for mayo eggs. Do not knock it till you try it. This is one you have definitely heard about. Popeyes, Wendy's, KFC, or Burger King, there is nothing that hits that sweet spot in every corner of your head like some fried chicken does. Something about it makes it the perfect marriage between seasonings, oil, chicken, and breadcrumbs. You have probably tried this yourself too, but using baking powder on that chicken skin can get you some extra crispy zingers ready to go. Perfect for sandwiches, burgers, or just some chicken katsu curry. Ever feel like doing something extra with your chicken fillet? You know what to pull out of the cabinets. There's never been anything bad that came out of too much crispiness, except cholesterol issues and heart problems, but that's for like when you are 60 or something. Sometimes your fridge gets a due date for the scrapyard much earlier than it should. Sometimes the gas runs out and you are left debating a crisis. Do I let all my frozen stuff, my protein, and my milk go to waste? Or do I take some inspiration from my ancestors and try a neat little milk preservation hack? The next time you find yourself on the edge of a dairy disaster, try placing your bottled milk in a bowl of cold water. This next step is baby levels of difficulty. All you need is a wet cloth placed around the edges. Gets rid of those nasty bacteria, gets rid of your milk gone stale worries. We think it is an all-around win-win. This one is similarly another one you may have not only heard of, but seen, tried, and tested for yourself. Toasting spices in a pan can do wonders for their flavor. It is like steroids with athletes, except nothing about it messes up your system. Just a little bit of toasting can really bring out every last drop of flavor from whatever spices you are working with, and the end result you get is an explosively flavorful dish that packs thrice the punch you thought it would. Sounds like a pretty good deal this time too, right? Ever thought about why this happens though? You know how spices have these oils in them, and they are largely what is responsible for that banging taste we are all used to? Once you toast them, the heat starts to draw out those oils and it kind of puts them on turbo mode. Cumin gets more healthy, chilies are no longer just spicy enough to make your eyes water, but sweet and smoky too, and coriander really gets flavor. Here's a patty grilling technique endorsed by the culinary virtuoso himself, Gordon Ramsay. You get some nice beef patties perfectly shaped, seasoned, and ready to be slapped onto the grill for the most divine homemade burger you have had in the past 5 years. Turns out it was a bit too humid, the meat was a little dry, and the grilling took away all the moisture. You end up with a dry, chewy patty that does neither your teeth nor your taste buds any favors. So what's an honest burger lover to do? Put some ice cubes on that bad boy and let it grill. You will genuinely be shell-shocked at the results. The whole thing here is that it keeps that moisture locked into the patty, so the burger stays constantly juicy throughout the process from the moment you put it on the grill to the moment it hits your plate. It is not like you have anything to lose by trying except like 4 ice cubes, so give this a shot. And remember, you can always take Ramsay's word for it too. Just like breadcrumbs have become synonymous with providing the perfect golden, crunchy exterior, crushed cornflakes have the same reputation from our grandparents' days. Most things you would add this to, like chicken fillets or strips, would get significantly more crunchier and crispier. And the coating did not taste as much like cereal as you are thinking it would. It actually just tasted like pretty good skin, the kind that crumbles and falls apart in your mouth as you bite into it. Probably the biggest benefit of your grandma cooking things up this way was that it really cut down on the grease factor. That can leave even the most loyal, crispy chicken lover feeling bloated, oily, and a little turned off for the day. Speaking of turnoffs, something that detracts from all the maritime goodness fish has to offer is that offensive odor that tends to come with most seafood you will catch. Funnily enough, soaking your fish in milk can quickly eliminate that issue. Look, there is no easy way to say it. It stinks, and it stinks bad. It is not something you would want with your food, much less constantly oozing out of your fridge every time you open it. Grandmas did know that fish is too essential of a superfood to just cut out of the diets of growing healthy kids, though. Naturally, they did what they do best and scoured the ends of the culinary world looking for a way to solve the problem. The answer was always much closer to them than they would think, almost right under their nose. When you soak fish in milk for about 20 minutes, it bonds with the protein in the milk and the compounds in the fish responsible for that ghastly smell stick with the beverage afterwards. When you extract it, you get a clean-tasting fish with none of that ridiculous funk. A golden rule passed down from grandmother to mother and eventually to our generation is that whenever you're cooking carbs like pasta or spaghetti noodles, you drizzle in a little olive oil. The trick here this time is that it prevents the noodles from sticking together, and we all like our noodles with extra twirling ability. Stacking up loads of pasta on a fork for a massive bite is one of the joys of pasta, to be honest, and that can only work if they are not all stuck together like somebody poured in hot glue. Olive oil can do literal wonders for this little problem that dominates most pasta-based dishes, and if you are new to it and want to make some killer Alfredo, remember to try this out. Something that is ridiculously common in Southeast Asian households in America, but a little less known to natives of Uncle Sam's residence, is that rinsing your rice with water can do wonders for any dish. Literally, any dish that involves even the slightest hint of rice. This is because rinsing removes the extra starch packed into rice, giving you fluffier grains with minimal effort. If you are the type of person who enjoys their rice soft, airy, and mushy, then this is one kitchen hack you need to try. This time, you can thank brown grandmas for passing it on to the mainstream. Even culinary scientists like Matt Slem vouch for this, and just like with sticky pasta, nobody enjoys eating sticky rice. So you could not finish up all your pizza in one go, but you bet the gang that you needed an entire large one to yourself. It happens to the best of us, but do not let overestimation trap you into forcefully eating soggy leftover pizza. Reheat it in a skillet and get that crust crispy, fresh, and warm, all in one go. Just because something is a leftover does not mean you have to completely sacrifice the original quality. You can still get a lot of bang for your buck if you take the time to heat it the old-fashioned way. We know microwaves are convenient, almost dangerously so, but they cannot do everything that gas-based fire and kitchen utensils can. So if you really do not feel like sitting through mushy, soggy pizza crusts, you know what to do now. Too much raisins can be pretty bad for you despite what clickbait articles on the internet or Instagram info dumps will have you believe, unless you cook them the right way, which is by soaking them in some hot water before you get to baking. Something you must have noticed by now, whether we are dealing with fried chicken and pizza or rice and ground beef patties, is that every kind of food has the potential to get significantly better depending on the prep. If you just take a little bit of time out to add some things, soak them, place them in a proper container, and try a few hacks, then you can find yourself having a much better dish. In this case, the hot water makes them plumpier and amps up their properties as a natural laxative. You the type to struggle with digestion? This is a hack for you, plus all the other benefits like taming your sweet cravings or boosting your bone strength. Seems like Grandma really did know what was best for our bodies. When you hear the word umami, you naturally think of everything savory and typically found in main courses. Very few people realize that anything with cocoa, in this instance chocolate, also has that flavor. So what is the best way to bring it out of your chocolate? Adding some soy sauce into it can really intensify it because of the saltiness from the sauce. Try this out the next time you bake a cake, truffles, or even cookies and brownies. We know they do not seem like they would go together, but very few things look like a perfect pair until you put the combo into practice. And this is a tried and true one after all. This is probably no surprise to a lot of people who grew up having mac and cheese at their grandma's house or from a street cart down the block. Just a little bit of mustard in your mac and cheese can do wonders for taking an already perfect dish and kicking it up several notches, but the question is, why? What does mustard do to mac and cheese that makes this pairing so irresistible that every vendor, grandma, and home chef from the Midwest to the northern areas tries it? It is because the acidity of the mustard really helps cut through all the fat in the macaroni and cheese and blends together with the flavor already there. You can find this in just about any grocery store too if you check the back of the box. Classic Dijon or yellow mustard adds that tang that makes your mac and cheese shine and stand out. If starch holds things like pasta and rice together and rinsing it out gives you nicely separated grains and fluffy pasta, what happens when you add starch back in? Well, exactly what you would think. Potatoes are a great source of starch, and adding them to any kind of soup, stew, or broth would help thicken the consistency exponentially. If you are not the type to enjoy thin, clearer broths, then adding mashed potatoes into your cauldron will help a lot. As the potatoes cook, they end up releasing starch, which holds the soup together much better, giving it a velvety texture that feels great with every spoonful. If you don't feel like going the extra mile with all the prep mashed potatoes require, don't worry. You can always just add in some instant potato flakes for relatively the same effect. Remember, the name of the game this time is starch, not the potatoes themselves, though they make a great side to any broth. Actually, let's go back to rice for a bit. Some people do, in fact, like sticky rice. Though they were a minority back in the days of our grandparents, they have become quite a vocal group nowadays. That is why tricks that our grandmas invented, like cooking rice in coconut milk, are making a sharp comeback because people finally decided not to sleep on thick and creamy rice. If you add in the stuff, then it gives rice fat and sweetness and also helps prevent water from getting into it. You know what that means? The rice stays together and gets a much more vivid texture than you would otherwise be used to. If you ever get bored of plain rice, try this neat little variation for yourself. Whether it's for a nostalgic trip or to explore a new world of rice you haven't experienced before. Taking a detour back into Fluffville, we have cake batter that gets extra airy and soft if you add in just a dash of vinegar to it. The fluffier a cake is, the better, and most bakeries and restaurants strive for that perfectly soft cake with the texture of a cloud. You do not want your cake to feel coarse, dry, or too crumbly, and nobody walked this line better than Grandma whipping up a fresh batch of baked goodness for her favorite grandchildren. How did so many grandmothers do it across the nation, though? The trend of adding vinegar to cake batter actually grew in the 70s and became a popular tactic among home chefs. They started noticing how it reacted with the baking soda, creating bubbles that helped the cake rise much more evenly and better. This sounded like a deal too good to pass up for the amount of effort it took, so from then onwards, most home-baked cakes incorporated some kind of vinegar in them. One of the most dreaded experiences in the kitchen is when, for seemingly no reason, your avocado starts to brown past the point of no return. This happens because once avocados are exposed to oxygen, they start to produce melanin, which turns them brown. If you like your avocados green and fresh, though, one really easy trick you can try every time from now on is to leave the pit and store it. Then cover the avocado with plastic wrap in an airtight container. This helps preserve it for as long as possible, and if the container was any indication, the idea here this time is to cut off all contact with oxygen as much as possible. How do we spice up meatballs, which are essentially the bread and butter of American homemade dinners? How many times have we all come home to spaghetti and meatballs in the fridge or eaten the leftovers for breakfast the next day? Enough times that putting some effort into varying the dish up or taking it up a few levels seems to be worth the time and energy. Luckily, this hack takes neither time nor effort away from you because it is a one-stop shop for all your meatball needs. You only need to add in a few raisins to your meatballs, and that gives it this really subtle sweetness that changes the entire flavor profile up to the point where you may be wondering why nobody ever told you about this before. Do not thank us. Thank the grandmas that invented the hack. Let's wrap this list up with some salvaging work in case of unfortunate incidents which are so prone to happening in the kitchen. We have all had to deal with some burnt food, smoke emitting from the windows, the bitter smell clogging up our noses. It is not a pleasant experience. Even less appealing is actually stomaching that stuff in the name of not wasting food, which, as admirable as that is, does not need to be half as bitter as it tends to taste like. If you sprinkle in just a little bit of salt into your dish, you can help neutralize all those flavors you do not want on your plate. Now, it is not really a complete fix. Burnt food is burned after all, but it is a convenient Band-Aid solution that works more often than not. This brings us to the end of our list littered with simple food hacks our grandmothers taught us. Let us know your favorite hack, like, subscribe, and let's keep these memories alive.